It was supposed to be a quiet getaway, a chance to breathe fresh mountain air, hear the bird song in the morning, and feel the crunch of leaves under my boots while I hiked alone through the trails near my cabin. But life rarely goes as planned, and sometimes reality throws at you something so bizarre that you end up questioning your own sanity. This is the story of how the controlling HOA Karen not only invaded my peace, but went so far as to call the cops on me when I returned earlier than expected to my own cabin. What followed was a whirlwind of arguments, law enforcement confusion, shocking revelations, and the kind of absurdity that could only happen when a person lets power and entitlement consume them. The cabin in the pines. The cabin wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. Nestled in a small, private community in the Smoky Mountains, it had a rustic charm with cedar walls, a stone fireplace, and a wraparound porch perfect for sipping coffee while watching the mist roll over the hills. I had bought it 5 years earlier, intending to use it as a weekend retreat and an occasional vacation rental. It came with one downside, though: the Homeowners Association. Like most HOAs, it was originally formed to maintain roads, keep the shared trails clear, and enforce basic safety rules. But somewhere along the way, it turned into a tool for nosy neighbors to control every little detail of each other's lives. Leading that charge was Karen. Though her actual name was Patricia, everyone called her Karen behind her back, and sometimes to her face. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA, patrolling the community in her golf cart with a clipboard, noting down infractions like garbage can left out past 9 a.m. or wind chimed too loud. I had learned to keep my distance. When I visited, I parked neatly, painted the porch in neutral tones she couldn't complain about, and never left so much as a soda can in plain sight. Karen was relentless, but I figured if I kept a low profile, she'd leave me alone. At least that's what I thought. Returning early. This summer, I had rented the cabin out for 3 weeks while traveling for work. But halfway through, the trip was cut short. I decided to drive straight up to the cabin, looking forward to a quiet week of relaxation before heading back to the city. I pulled into the gravel driveway, just after noon. The first thing that struck me was the car, a tan SUV I didn't recognize, parked squarely in front of the cabin. My immediate thought was that the last renters hadn't left yet. Maybe a scheduling error? I dragged my suitcase out of the car, climbed the porch steps, and unlocked the door. As it swung open, I froze. Inside, I found clothes scattered across the couch, groceries on the counter, and a pair of muddy boots by the fireplace. This wasn't the leftovers of renters. Someone was actively living there. And that's when she appeared, face to face with Karen. Karen stepped out from the kitchen, wearing an apron like she was in her own home. She stopped dead when she saw me standing there. "What are you doing in here?" she demanded, her eyes wide. "What am I doing in here? This is my cabin." I shot back. She crossed her arms, her chin tilted upward in defiance. "This property is part of the HOA jurisdiction. You can't just barge into people's homes unannounced." I blinked, trying to process her words. "People's homes? Karen, this is my cabin. I own it, deed and all." Her face didn't change. Instead, she pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. You're trespassing." The cops arrive. It didn't take long for the sheriff's deputies to arrive. This was a small community, and Karen had them on speed dial. When they pulled up, I was standing on the porch, arms folded, while Karen theatrically waved at them like she'd just caught a criminal red-handed. "That's him," she cried. "He broke into my house. He's dangerous." The deputy approached cautiously. "Sir, can we see some ID?" "Of course," I said, handing over my license. "And if you'd like, I can show you the deed to this cabin. It's under my name. She doesn't live here. I don't even rent to locals." Karen stomped her foot. "Don't listen to him. I've been living here for 2 weeks. Everyone knows this is my place." The deputies exchanged a look. One of them said gently, "Ma'am, do you have any documentation proving this is your residence?" She hesitated, then muttered something about verbal agreements and squatters' rights. That's when I produced my folder from the glove box of my car. The deed, utility bills, even photos of me here over the years. The deputies looked through the paperwork, nodded, and turned to Karen. "Ma'am, it looks like this property does belong to him." The excuses. You'd think that would end it, But Karen wasn't the type to back down. "He abandoned it," she shrieked. "It was sitting empty, and we can't have neglected properties in our community. As HOA president, I had the authority to take it over and maintain it. By living in it," I asked incredulously. "Someone had to keep it from going into disrepair," she snapped. "Besides, I've been making improvements. I repainted the bathroom, reorganized the kitchen, even replaced the curtains. You should be thanking me." The deputies tried not to laugh. I was too stunned to respond. She had literally moved into my cabin without permission and was acting like she had done me a favor. The bigger picture. As the deputies escorted Karen off the property, I started asking questions. How had she even gotten in? Turns out, she'd pressured the rental company into giving her the key code. She claimed there was an HOA emergency, something about leaks causing structural damage, and that as HOA president, she needed immediate access. The poor kid at the rental agency, intimidated by her authoritative tone, handed it over. Once inside, she decided to temporarily occupy the cabin, turning it into her own personal mountain retreat. For 2 weeks, she had lived there, cooking meals, sleeping in my bed, even hosting her friends for wine nights. I was livid. Aftermath and fallout. Karen wasn't arrested that day. The deputies said it was a civil matter unless I pressed charges. Believe me, I did. I filed for trespassing, fraud, and damages. When I went through the cabin later, I found she had rearranged furniture, hung tacky HOA flyers on the fridge, and even left a binder labeled Proposed Improvements for Community Cabins. The HOA tried to circle the wagons around her at first, but when the story spread, other residents started coming forward. Apparently, she had a history of overstepping, entering people's yards uninvited, snooping in garages, even threatening fines for unapproved flower choices. My case became the tipping point. By the end of summer, Karen was voted out as HOA president. She left the community shortly after, though not without a few dramatic rants on the neighborhood Facebook page about ungrateful homeowners. Reflection. I wish I could say I laugh about it now, but honestly, it shook me. There's something deeply unsettling about coming home to find someone else living in your space, using your things, and claiming it's theirs. At the same time, it taught me a lesson about boundaries and about the dangers of letting someone like Karen run unchecked with even a small amount of authority. Now, whenever I arrive at the cabin, I check every room carefully, half expecting to find her back again. Old habits die hard, but so far it's just been me, the woods, and the quiet I wanted all along. Months later, I got a letter in the mail, not from Karen, but from her lawyer. She was threatening to countersue me for defamation of character. My attorney laughed so hard he almost fell out of his chair. We never heard from her again after that. And that, friends, is how my HOA Karen called the cops on me for trespassing in my own cabin after secretly living there for 2 weeks.